but the one who confesses their sins, they find mercy with God. I have to find that scripture. Sorry. It's a very powerful one. It's sort of a copy-paste of what you've just read. Anyone with a Bible on their phone?
Yes, actually.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we go to Proverbs 20?
Proverbs 28, verse 13.
It's verse 13.
He who conceals his sin will not prosper, but whoever confesses and renounces them will find mercy.
Oh. Is it the same thing?
It is.
It is the same thing.
It is.
How will you find healing if you conceal it? The problem.
And that thing is so relatable with Kenya right now. Oh, my Lord.
And that's where we are, isn't it?
If you try to now interpret that into what we are seeing today in Kenya, again, another copy-paste.
Yeah.
Like we keep saying in this show, you keep sliding things under, covering these things under. You're not coming out to say, well, this is what is ailing us. This is what is our issue.
Let's address it.
You will not get mercy.
Nope.
You know? So if you do, then you will prosper.
Exactly.
And that's what we keep saying. Let me not go into those details. I'm still looking at these newspapers.
You're going to have to go into the details at some point when we come and look into the headlines, because it's going to come out, my friend. It's definitely going to come out. So how about we say hi to people first? At least let's clear. Make we clear road, as we say for Pidgin. Make we clear road first.
Actually, today is more than salam. It's also like checking up on each other.
And making sure that everybody is okay.
Like today morning you're waking up, okay, did you get home? Are you alive?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you does anyone you know, was anyone harmed? This kind of thing.
Absolutely. Just to check in, guys, this morning and making sure that everybody is okay. We know that there are very many people who are not. But for the folks who then have the opportunity to tune in this morning, just let us know that everything is all right where you are. You know, and of course, our hearts go out very, very strongly to those who lost loved ones yesterday, as well as those who are injured, because we know scores of people are. Robert Mbogo says, good morning from Mombasa. Don Sabo says, yes, it's devastating. The sorrow, the anger, the disbelief. How many more lives must be lost before the crises of a generation are heard? Good morning from Sydney, says Hilary Ogato. Behind the scenes says, good morning from Nairobi. Linus Gitonga, good to see you, brother. Good morning. Good morning, my family. A sad day indeed. So much destruction, says African Queen. It says where we are. Good morning from Denmark. Or is it a good morning, says Abacus? That's the question. Chief Bond says, good morning, D&D from Mirema. Looking forward to world-class conversations. But what a sad day it was yesterday, for sure. For sure. At some point, I just felt my heart drop to the pit of my stomach. Muna Libzan says, good morning from Sweden. Good Gen Z, I'm with you in spirit. Bernardito is saying, good morning from Doha, Princess Ndu and Dennis Squared. Good morning. Why is the government scared of its own people? It's a question. One time, apende asipende, says Cyprian Kambuni. Okay. Totti Bishop says, my heart goes out to our fallen heroes as we hold them close in our thoughts and prayers, and may their courage and sacrifice never be forgotten. And in my mind, I see that body of that young 4-year-old dead. Didn't need to be, but he is. Desmond Oti says, good morning from Muhanya Lakeshore. Ndu, happy belated birthday. Thank you so much, Santi Sana. Carol Nyambura says, good morning. Now, Apenda Bure, wishing you a blessed day ahead and please stay safe. Yes, indeed, sister. Erica War says, good morning, guys. Monica Oile says, it's hot everywhere. You know, Ottawa is 35 degrees. What is actually going on in northern hemisphere, in the western hemisphere? You know, and moving north, New York heading out across the border and then into Canada. I know we're getting into the summer, but it's unbelievably hot. 35 degrees, 30 degrees. It's different. It's more than a heat wave, this one.
Climate change.
Yeah, but it's big
Global
time.
warming.
It is. It's big time, though. Jesus needs to come to Kenya himself, not sending angels. Okay. Abacus says, are we headed for a dictatorship? He's asking. General Specific says, good morning, Dennis, and Denise. Right. I decided I'll be Denise. It is not a good morning. Can you see the rage snowballing? Can you see protests getting bigger? Can you see the people getting bolder? A third wave will come. Eric Migiro says, good morning, family. Good morning, brother. Good morning to have you here. Dr. Eda Tatu, good morning. Thou shalt not force yourself onto people who have rejected thee. That is emotional intelligence. You should be able to figure it out. You're right, Daktari. Leo says, good morning, Ndu, Aseto, and Dennis, and Regia. Breaking news, Ruto has achieved one thing, uniting a generation that's looking beyond tribe, regional warlords, and able to speak and act as one. That's true. Boangi Juma, good morning to you. Hope you're well. We are well. We confirm after having exercised our powers directly. Sarah Kilonzo said good morning. And Machelle says good morning. We remember the standard group that stood when it mattered most, not for convenience. Thank you so much. Jumbo Spice, holiday Meisha Watu Warudi Kazini, says Kisa Daniel. Was it a holiday really? Okay, we'll go with it. Zach, okay, we see you saying the same thing as well. Leo says, good morning, Princess Ndu, Aseto, Dennis, and Lydia. Salutations for standing in the gap, standing with the people and defying an unlawful and unconstitutional order. CA has become Ruto attack dog. Telling you. Georgia Koth, we see you. Good morning. Are the police officers, do they have a bone to pick with Kenyans? It would appear as though they do. Tibbs Muge says, good morning. Thanks again for the hard work. Thank you always for tuning in, Tibbs. James Kamau says, Jumbo Situation Room getting you loud and clear right here in Forney, Texas. It's now time for Ruto to put down the gun and engage. Chamgay, my beautiful people, says Ann Gore. Good morning to you, my sister. Kavoy Felix says, good morning. Greetings from Kathonzweni in Makweni. I've been there, by the way. The sisters, good morning, says the sisters. Thank God our country still exists. Peace be unto us. Amen. Mwangi Mike says, good morning. Thank you I'm ready for the informed conversations. Edgar Sanya says, getting you live from Kitengela. Good morning as well. Matthew Kidara, let us know how things are in Kitengela. It was quite hot last night. Simon Kibiru says, good morning, happy Thursday. Indeed, Dr. Venvik says, God bless Kenya. Phil O is watching from Delaware. Mbaga Joshua says, good morning. Josh is tuning and said, a sad day in Kenya. Indeed. Najma Chaudhry says, good morning, a woman in power. We need a woman in power. Another one, Kari Mathai, period. Eric Tamaro says, good morning. Henry Odero is also tuning from Dar es Salaam. Good morning to you. Richard Osoro is here. Good mornings and greetings, D&D, says Young Jedi. A moment of silence for our fallen comrades. We definitely will do that. Zalendo is saying, good morning. And good leadership has nothing to do with gender. Okay. Jack Atambo is saying good morning. Good morning, Spice family, says Philandu. Jerry, good morning to you. Happy belated. Thank you so much. D&D represented us well with lovely messages while we were away on the front line. Yes, indeed we did. Anything lately says, good morning, cousins. Good morning, familia. Louis Rudasingwa is tuned in this morning, and we see you, Young Jedi. Thank you so much. Pamela Rita, guten Morgen. Great crew of the biggest holistic conversation in Africa. We've gone continental. All right. Abiot is currently in Ethiopia, and it's 2017, not 2018. Okay, Sawa. So it's 8 years behind. Willis Koyi, we are fine. Good morning. Stanley Ngashe, good morning. Frida Voigt is tuned in from Germany. And Kevin Obanga is here as well. Charles Kanyeve tuned in as well. Lamek Otieno, we see you. James Mukabana is tuned in as well. Paul J here. Yeah, it was 35 degrees in Toronto yesterday, but felt like 40, isn't it? It was crazy. Good morning, D squared, and Ndu God is coming down. He has seen, heard, and is coming down. Voices of the downtrodden never go unheard by God. And this is Jane from Kilifi. You guys have really flocked into the room this morning. Can I get to everybody? Let's go. Ira, good morning. Ahmed is also here. Daniel is tuned in. Mutuflani, good morning. Nish is also here. Martin Otieno is tuned in. Mwafrika Kev says good morning. Keith Kinoti is here. Ahmed Mwololo, we see you. Martin Otieno, Michael Ochieng, Munene and Jeru, everybody, good morning. Karibuni Sana, and welcome to the Situation Room. Let's have those conversations. And it's more than just a conversation, because we get an opportunity to bond and we get an opportunity to share ideas. It's always to do better, to be better, and to ask for better. All right, let's look into the headlines this morning, shall we? On the front page of Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard.
Ukona maji?
I'm looking for it somewhere.
Today we will need water.
Where? Because the rogue regime is what is on the front page of The Standard today. Youthful protesters flooded the streets in defiant remembrance of those gunned down in last year's rallies. But instead of a listening ear, they were met with razor wire, armored trucks, and the cold grip of repression. Parliament, the People's House, was barricaded like a Nazi concentration camp, a grotesque symbol of a government retreating from its citizens. Police unleashed brute force. Media houses went dark as broadcast signals were pulled in a desperate bid to silence the voices. But the youth were undeterred, their voices pierced through the fog of tear gas and tyranny, refusing to be drowned in fear or blood.
Let me tell you something, Yesterday and today, as it has been several days, you need to open the Standard like this.
Yes.
Then you read it from the back, and then you see what it's talking about.
Yeah.
So you have angry nation, rogue regime. You're looking at those pictures, and you go now to what is in the headline, and
It's one picture. It's one big
it's just
picture.
It's just one picture.
But then in the picture, there are the details. It's one big picture made up of very, very many smaller pictures.
Yeah.
But, one thing that you always say, Okari, is that when you zoom out, you're seeing the many small pictures that are making up this big picture. And that is what we are looking at today. It sounds like a movie. In fact, I'm going to ask, because I'm looking for the person who penned this headline. In the way that, to understand their mind a little bit, because every word here has captured essentially what was happening yesterday and what continues to happen. So these stories are carried in the Standard on page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, and 17. And the picture does tell 1,000 words. And we see this all across, whether it's billows of smoke or whether it's thousands of people marching in the street, whether it's individuals standing in the front of armored vehicles, ready to say, I put down everything for the betterment of this nation. And the stories will tell the picture. And this is what we see from Your Guns Won't Silence Our Voices, Opposition and Protesters Tell Ruto. And then we into other stories where outcry as CA muzzles the media using outdated law on protest anniversary. That actually happened yesterday. Digital literacy powered Gen Z uprising, uplifted dissenting voices. It didn't take a minute. But unfortunately, some of the other things that we saw yesterday is that a lot of propaganda was being spread on socials and in many cases was just not true. So it's necessary for us to be careful what we consume and whether we're able to sift it through the sieve of facts.
Well, the Standard exposed plots by the government that was working with digital propagandists. There were messagings and there were plans on how to deal with yesterday's anniversary / protest.
Yeah.
And so it's not strange. And people are intelligent. So even on the socials, people debunk a lot of these things quite easily.
And quickly.
Yeah. The assumption sometimes is we are still living in those, dark days when, something will be said, the propaganda will spread to the villages and everybody will believe. Today, it's not like that. Today, you have AI to actually quickly, in seconds, debunk a lot of these things. So I don't think it's working. I think it's, in my opinion, a group that lives in this space of theirs. You've got mobilizers, you've got bots that will respond to your texts and posts, and it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Because if you look at it, every other communication that has happened before, it is so easy for someone to just go to Grok and ask Grok to give you details, and you get it there. It is a generation, and it is a system right now that we are working in. People know what is happening.
Indeed.
And you can't just come and try change the conversation simply because you think you're the government. No.
As we look at other headlines, it's just interesting because we talk about a picture and it tells a story.
Yeah.
There's a picture that I'm looking for, and I don't know if it made its way into the Standard, probably maybe into another one as well. But that one of the wreaths that was taken to be placed in memory of those who fell. So somebody had removed a pink rose from one of the wreaths and laid it in the barricade wire.
Yeah.
And it just sat there on its own. And I thought, look at that. That's the coming together of these two worlds where we're stopping you from remembering in one way and we're barricading. And there's a blockage to this essential freedom that you're looking for. And that this flower to represent something or somebody then is still finding its way into that blockage and is sitting right there and says, I'm here alive as this flower. I'm here if you would just let down your guard. And for me, that spoke huge volumes yesterday.
And I remember following up on that, you could see Kalonzo Musyoka and Eugene Omalwa and crew just walk there, engage with the police. They shook hands. Some even hugged each other. They put the wreath there. But one would just ask the question, what is the government so afraid of that they have to barricade Parliament the way it did?
It's true.
Remember, this is House of Parliament. Leaders who've been donated power by Kenyans. At some point, I saw videos from Parliament legislators leaving in a hurry simply because there was a communication that they were asked to leave Parliament immediately because the young people
We're coming.
wanna come.
All right.
Anyway,
Some more headlines.
so it's still the same thing on the Daily Nation. Images of yesterday's protest and with the 3 TV stations switched off. State repression rears head as CA legally shuts down TV stations. 9 killed, about 400 injured, and more than 60 arrested. And these numbers that you're talking about, 400 injured, journalists as well. I remember there is a journalist from Citizen TV who was hit in the head by a tear gas canister. Luckily, he had a protective gear. And looting and destruction, sadly enough, that was also witnessed yesterday. And 27 counties across the country reported protest as Gen Z united to remember their fallen soldiers. Pages 2, 3, again, a pictorial of what happened yesterday, as well as Black Wednesday as 9 killed and traders suffering losses. Pretty much it's just a story on the same. And the picture on page 7 of Communications Authority of Kenya Director General, that is David Mugoni, an individual I've worked with before. He used to be at Nation newspaper, then went to Parliament as the head of Media Center, then found himself there, and seems as though he's forgotten one day he was on this side.
Anafanya tu kazi yake.
I know.
Yeah, you're being paid to do your job, so
orders from above. Eh?
Same way as the cops on the streets. I mean, they're just paid and they're given orders and instructions go to the streets.
Okay, sure.
You done? Okay, the Star, Mayhem and Death. See pages 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I say today's newspapers, you open like a photo album, but very, very sad pictures. So trigger-happy cops shoot Matu protester dead as government clamps down hard on media, switches off live broadcast. Pictures there of what happened yesterday as demonstrators light bonfires in Kisii town, protesters in Kibwezi, Makueni County, youthful protesters marching along Moi Avenue in Nairobi, and so on and so forth. Media clamped down on page 2. APRO as CA switches off NTV and KTN. 23 groups sue Communications Authority boss Mugoni over live broadcast orders. 23.
Boss, let me
And
tell
counting,
you,
eh?
I'm sorry, you know, the speed and alacrity with which people filed orders straight to court yesterday, and I was like, what? And it was as though the minute Faith Odhiambo heard that this was happening, she said, I know my constitution in and out, back to front, upside down.
Yes.
And this is not on. Quickly to court and said, come on, stop it.
I'll tell you guys.
23.
This thing is not complicated. I'm going to break down for you what the CA did so that our listeners and our viewers will understand where we're coming from.
Okay, you'll do that as our first story.
Yes,
in
there's
just
a
minute.
lot that has been quoted, the Constitution, the articles.
Yes.
Why were we switched off? I will explain the backstory and I'll explain why this thing was actually against the Constitution and why you have all these groups suing. So you go to page 4, again, mayhem, death as 25 counties hit by demos. 25. So yesterday, if you're trying to follow what's going on around the country despite the switch off, it was so difficult to keep up because there were so many parts of this country that were experiencing this, where you had streets becoming battlegrounds filled with gunfire, tear gas, and stone throwing as officers clashed with determined protesters. I don't even need to go any further. Those are the stories today.
Those are the stories today, but let's start. We're just going to go through it. So let's start with this story about the CA and switching off, because one of the things that we have seen previously, because if we look at times gone by, okay, let's look about 50 to 40 years ago, that when media was really starting to come into its own and start to be the voice that told the story of nations, and this is across the world, that when then you had oppressive regimes that would come into place, the zeitgeist of the time was to switch off any channel that was giving out information. It was those what we would call as the dark days, when you would basically shut off all kinds of communication and you have people operating in the dark. And it was at that time right? That people would be killed wantonly, that people would disappear, that nobody would have a voice to say anything. And remember, it was still very traditional. It was radio and it was TV in some cases, but most part radio, and then it was your paper, which if you think about it, what you read today in the paper is what happened yesterday. Okay, so you don't have real time with a newspaper. So it was really radio. So at that time, what would happen is if you shut off information, then you allow anything to happen, and that nobody would be any wiser because they couldn't see it.
And you know,
so that was the MO of the time.
Yes.
So when people say that you're taking us back to the dark days, that is exactly what we mean, because you essentially switched off the lights.
Yes.
You know what they did in those dark days? So TV, you just switch off. Radio, you switch off. But for print, what used to happen, because if a paper goes into print, you may not stop it at that point. You can't control. But what they would do, because the papers have to hit the streets. Remember, this was before the digital migration.
Yes.
So we never had the e-papers and all that. So what would happen, once the papers are dispatched and hit the streets from 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning,
buy all the papers.
People are sent, buy all those newspapers. So by 7, somebody's driving, they expect their everyday newspaper. The vendor is like, Hakuna gazeti boss. Zimenunuliwa zote. So that's how he kept people in the dark. But just to give you context of what happened yesterday.
Give us that story.
So KTN and NTV and K24 was switched off live, all right, by the Communications Authority of Kenya. Now, this occurred during the live coverage of the anti-tax protest anniversary, and this was marking the first anniversary. So we know that, correct? Now, why is the CA move controversial? It is controversial because what the CA used was a 2009 regulation meant for broadcast programming violations, not live protest coverage.
Yes.
I repeat, it was for broadcast programming violations, not live protest coverage. But I'll go deeper than that. So the government is now accused of using an outdated law to suppress press freedom and block protest coverage. So who is condemning it? We've looked at 23 groups. So we have media, lawyers, human rights activists, and media organizations that are actually talking about this. So this is a blatant abuse of power and a threat to democracy. So let's look at the legal and the constitutional arguments here. So the Article 34 that was quoted by 33.2 and 34 Section 1 guarantees, so the Constitution guarantees freedom and independence of the media. So the critics are saying CA's directive violated those two articles, which is freedom of media and right to information. Programming code is being misused beyond its intent. Now, what the legal experts are saying, it's unconstitutional and it sets a dangerous precedent. Now, why does it matter? It is because, like you said, Ndu, media acts as a watchdog. So, especially during protests and police action. And the reason why this is important is when you switch off, you are going to hide police brutality or goons brutality. It's going to encourage impunity. It's going to block the public from seeing what's happening in real time. Now, these sections that I'm citing here, Section 33.2 says, the right to freedom of expression does not extend to propaganda for war, incitement to violence, hate speech, or advocacy of hatred that constitutes ethnic incitement, vilification of others, or incitement. I can go on and on and on. But you see, all these things, again, were changed later in the Constitution. When was the last time we were switched off? Do you remember?
No.
You guys remember the last time we were switched off?
As standard?
No, generally, the last time we were all switched off.
No.
It was during the inauguration of...
Oh, Baba.
Yes.
Yes.
You remember the parallel swearing in?
Yes.
Swearing in.
This was, let me just go back to this. This was in 2018, January 30th, 31 there. So the false inauguration, which was like a coup coverage, is when the opposition leader then, Raila Odinga, held symbolic swearing-in ceremony, claiming to be the people's president. Now, CAK raided and switched off signals at KTN, NTV, and Citizen TV to prevent that live coverage of the event. So the shutdown lasted about a day until a high court ordered the stations reinstated. All right? So that's the last time we had such a thing. But when you look at this law that is being quoted here by Mugonyi was replaced. That provision does not exist. So it has no legal effect. That's what lawyers are arguing. So you're using a provision that is non-existent and disregarding a High Court order or High Court ruling that stripped the Communications Authority of the powers to regulate media content. And that's where the argument is. So the order was issued against all this. The 1998 law has 103 sections. It was replaced by the Kenya Information and Communications Amendment Act of 2013. So we are working with the 1998 law, which was changed, and the order was still issued.
Do you know what that does? Is that I see things. I find it very difficult to see things just as they present themselves, that there must be something underlying. And so this order is representative of this constant impunity that we have been seeing for the longest time. That because of the fact that you are in a position of authority, that you feel as though you can pull something out of a hat like the magician and its rabbit and decide that it can be applied across board and everybody's going to have to bow to it without realizing that people, for lack of a better word, are woke and understand exactly what it is that they're able to do well within their rights. That because you're in a position of authority, you can pull something out and say, well, I'm going to decide that I'm going to switch you off because what you're doing is contravening 1, 2, 3, whereby the contravention that we are talking about actually does not exist. And this is representative of the impunity that has put the people in the streets in the first place.
Exactly.
This is a representation of that same thing. And so anything else that comes as a result of that is just you doing the things that you normally do anyway. So it doesn't change. Whether it's CA coming and saying switch it off, whether it's putting the military in the street, whether it is, shooting people, it is the same wanted impunity that people are complaining about from the beginning.
And you see, even when you talk about the Communications Authority is in charge of issuing licenses, not controlling content. Those that are in charge of controlling content in the country, we know them. We have the Media Council of Kenya. You have the Kenya Films Classification Board, who regulate the content that goes live on air. If the government actually had an issue, they know where to complain to. Fact that CA just woke up and decided to switch off, not because people misuse the licenses that they were issued, is actually them overstepping on their mandate. They do not have such powers to control the content.
The shutdown clearly violates both the Constitution and the Act.
Yes.
Those two things. Especially if no due process or legal threshold under Article 33, Section 2 is met. So here is a situation where one person can make a decision, wake up and decide we're switching off KTN. No due process is followed. And they go and they actually do it. Now, you don't follow the procedures, you don't follow the law, you don't follow the Constitution, and you don't follow what the Act actually stipulates. So when you do that and then you turn right around, I actually posted something and said, okay, fine. If they can do that because you are in power and you have the authority, how else do you expect and demand the same from the people that you're ruling over?
Yeah.
So if you're coming and saying you must follow the Constitution, I tell you, today, this morning on this show, you must follow the Constitution of this show. You must follow the guidelines and everything. And then I go and I violate it. How do I demand it from you?
Thank you.
You hold no authority or any moral authority for that matter to come and tell me to do it if you yourself have not. You don't. You hold nothing. You can't.
Because
this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, because when you talk about respect of rule of law and maintaining the same, those with the responsibility of seeing to it that this law is maintained and respected are the very first people who should observe the very same. It's the same thing we keep saying. It can't be that police officers are busy killing people. At the same time, you're coming telling us that you're trying to maintain law and order. From the first point, you have broken the very law you're trying to protect. You cease having any authority or any iota of anything pretty much. No one will listen to you because you've broken the law you're trying to protect. That's the same thing CA is doing here, because you're telling us respect the law, yet you're breaking the very law you're seeking to protect and uphold.
Let me ask a question before I go into the next story. Why do you think that these protests are met with fear? That when people are walking in the streets and say they want to actually come before the House and stand in silent, peaceful protest, why does that elicit fear? And I kind of already have the answer in my mind, that it is not the thought of a silent or peaceful protest that elicits fear. It is the reaction to that silent, peaceful protest that elicits the fear in the minds of any or many. that we don't know how this will be met by those who are in the minority. And so that friction or that clash is what brings about the fear. And it gives rise to this story that's on page 14 of the Standard. MPs scatter for safety amid fear of second visit by irate Gen Zs. On the day Kenyans commemorated the first anniversary of the Gen Z protests, the National Assembly were forced to prematurely adjourn its morning sitting over fears of a second breach of parliamentary precincts by youth. But remember that we saw this 1 meter high iron barricade around parliaments, and that there were armed security personnel around that area. So, Kini, what was the problem? Early in the morning, Interior and National Coordination Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen had toured the area. That was fun. Which saw reinforcement with razor-sharp barbed wire. And we also did see a young man, interestingly enough, with a brand new mkokoteni pushing things along next to the CS. So I don't know where he came from. That was empty. There was nothing in his mkokoteni. And it was painted nicely, maroon, shining. And I don't know where he was going, but he was escorting.
Wacha niulize.
Yeah, uliza.
Niulize.
Sema kutoke.
Wewe ni siku gani ya mwisho uliona mkokoteni mpya hivyo ikipita? Where was that place?
It was going to
where?
Down.
How many times do you see mkokoteni on that road? On a normal day.
On a normal day, and it's empty.
So this mkokoteni guy decided, leo kuna protest. Listen, guys, this is comedy. There's a razor wire barricading a Parliament Road.
Yeah.
Then it was blocked all the way from
City Hall.
From City Hall.
Yes,
So
that
he
intercontinental.
So he had access with mkokoteni. Now, the second thing is this. What does a mkokoteni carry?
Vegetables.
So what was he carrying?
Exactly.
Did you see what he was carrying?
Leave alone even that. You know, in these, the area we're talking about, even motorbikes are not allowed there.
On a normal day.
On a normal day.
Mkokoteni has never been there. What was it doing there? And then, he's rolling his thing happily alongside the CS. And the CS even asking him, what? Shughuli gani? What are you talking about? Stop carrying us pumpkin.
Yeah. I'm looking at that. I'm watching that video
You're
now.
carrying us children.
I'm just watching that video now. This mkokoteni guy was not carrying anything. There was nothing.
There was nothing in his
I'm watching the video now. There's nothing. There's no motorbike around him. It's him alone, surrounded by all the security chiefs, including the CS.
Yes.
Come on, guys. So he randomly found himself in a blocked street with a mkokoteni.
You know what that guy did? Yeah? Si alijua ni protest. So he went to a paint shop, painted the thing, just decided to stroll in town. To just all of a sudden meet with security officers and the CS, right?
I said that people were not allowed to enter into the city. Then suddenly here's a guy happily pushing along his mkokoteni next to the CS, and he was surrounded by armed security personnel.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. So at this time, this is what I was trying to say, that at that point, they were guarded. The House of Parliament was guarded heavily.
Yeah.
And that there was this barbed razor wire that was guarding all the roads leading to and from Parliament. So what was the fear? Why is there so much fear? What are we afraid of? And I think we can be bold to ask a question and say, what is the fear? Where is it? Are we actually afraid to do things right? Are we actually afraid to end impunity? Are we actually afraid to embrace good governance? Perhaps that's what the fear is.
Here's the picture. Around Parliament, there was this razor wire barricading the roads.
Yeah.
Now, immediately these MPs, because of fear, before they even finished the discussion, which was supposed to be morning session at 1, they left at 11:45 a.m. Now, immediately the House rose. Long convoys of parliamentary staff and MPs could be seen yet again sneaking out of Parliament through the underground tunnel. Do you know how much that tunnel costed? 150 million Kenya shillings.
Yes.
It's a 5-meter wide tunnel that lies beneath a section of Arambe Avenue, once again proving that they have basically barricaded themselves and they have an escape route.
Yes.
What escape route do Kenyans have?
None.
What escape route do Kenyans have from poor governance? What escape route do Kenyans have from when their children can't go to school? What escape route do Kenyans have when a mother and a father are crying over the death of their Form 4 child who died in cold blood yesterday? What escape route do Kenyans have when their dead are, there's no justice for their dead? Is there a 5-meter wide tunnel that Kenyans can get out of when they go to hospital and they cannot care for their sick? Is there a 5-meter wide tunnel when Kenyans cannot take their children to school? Is there a 5-meter wide tunnel when Kenyans cannot afford a meal a day? That's what Kenyans are asking for. Is there a 5-meter wide tunnel for Kenyans to escape these things that they are begging a government to do? Is there?
So you spend 150 million to build a tunnel as an escape route for you. We voted these MPs into parliament. They couldn't join or face these Gen Zs. They couldn't lay flowers outside parliament where several people were killed. They were barricading themselves inside, protected not just by the razor wire that's barricading them, but police officers who are in and around parliament buildings. And then when they felt the heat is coming towards them, then they quickly and speedily moved out through that 150 million tunnel to their choppers at the helipad at KCC, into their fuel guzzlers vehicles, and given an escape route out of the city. Can't even face the people who voted you in. This is the contrast we were talking about this morning, where you have the legislators who are supposed to make the laws in parliament, who are elected by the people inside that building,
who are shot
and
outside.
none of them could come out and face and say, okay, you know what, let's remember those who fell last year. No address, nothing.
You know, there's a gentleman yesterday when I was covering the thing who told our reporters yesterday, I have nothing to lose. I am learned, I have my degree, I have my master's, I don't have a job. I am working very hard to pay taxes, but I see my taxes being wasted by the people in there. By the time I was leaving the house in the morning, I told my people not to expect me back, that if I go, I went for a good cause. If they kill me, I will die for a good cause. There is also the mother of the gentleman who was shot in Wiki, went to Mbagathi yesterday to get autopsy, and she was told that can't be done today. She wanted to strip naked just so the state can listen to her and give her the results and her son's body to go bury. These are the things we're talking about this morning. At night, at around 9:30, there were bullets and tear gas renting the air where I stay.
9:30 p.m.
9:30 p.m.
That's why you didn't sleep?
I couldn't sleep. How do you sleep? You know, I have, my brother was attacked yesterday. Everything was stolen from him by goons. These are things we're talking about. It's personal like that. You know, when someone walks into your house with the trousers ripped up, phones, his documents gone, and you want to tell me that we have a crop of individuals who sit in parliament afraid of the very people who woke up at 4 a.m. to go vote them in. You want to tell us that you can take advantage of the law and oppressors?
The fact for me is that, you know, in every situation that you don't have somebody else, because here is this truth is being spoken to power, but the time when the power comes out and it's voiceless, then you know that you really have a problem. We're going into more conversations around this morning in the Situation Room, and we'll be back continuing after this. Good morning at 7 a.m.